Okay, so before we get started, you may have seen that last week I posted a survey on my channel asking for feedback and things you'd like to see, things you'd like to see improved, and I got over 400 responses, which is kind of crazy. So I decided to compile the most frequently asked questions that I saw in the survey and answer them in a video that I posted to my second channel over the weekend. So feel free to go check that out if you're interested, and also just a reminder that you can connect with me at all of the social media listed in this beautiful link tree, which can be found in the description down below. Thanks so much! As an avid pop culture news consumer, there is nothing more frustrating to follow than a fandom proxy war ignited by industry beef. And that is exactly what is going on with pop superstars Taylor Swift and Billie Eilish. Now I know what you're already thinking. Kayla, there is so much going on in the world. These two musicians are both wildly successful, they have dedicated fan bases, they have all the money and industry clout they could ever want. And yes, that's true. All of this could definitely be considered vapid nonsense being perpetuated by jobless people online. But as always, I am here to provide a coherent timeline of sorts for those who have been out of the loop on this, and perhaps we could come to some conclusions about what this means for the music industry as a whole. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. From what I can tell, this whole feud started back in March of this year, when Billie Eilish did an interview with Billboard. And in that interview, she criticized how some artists are rather unsustainable in their business practices and generally just how they sell products to their fans. The example that she gave here was basically the current market for vinyl sales, where musicians release several vinyl variants of the same record in order to drive up sales. The specific quote here being, "I can't even express to you how wasteful it is. I find it really frustrating as somebody who goes out of my way to be sustainable and do the best that I can and try to involve everybody in my team in being sustainable. And then it's some of the biggest artists in the world making 40 different vinyl packages that have different unique things just to get you to keep buying more." It's worth pointing out here that this is a common practice pretty much among all big artists. For example, the Rolling Stones released at least 43 variants of their 2023 album Hackney Diamonds. All of those variants had different colored LPs and artwork, but each version contained the same track list. Dolly Parton also did this on an album she released last year with a total of 9 vinyl variants. Billie Eilish has even done this herself, releasing her 2021 album Happier Than Ever in 4 vinyl variants. But it's worth noting here that according to her team, they were manufactured from 100% recycled black vinyl and wrapped in a more sustainable material. The criticism on Billie's part here is twofold. Basically, this practice of custom vinyl variants is unsustainable in the sense that it is typically not very environmentally friendly due to the physical material needed to make and package those vinyl records. Additionally, the practice has been criticized as being pretty anti-consumer, especially when it comes to an artist like Taylor Swift, who will not only release all of the different vinyl variants, but will also put a secret song or a secret code in each one in order to incentivize diehard fans to buy in further. Whether Billie was criticizing Taylor Swift directly in that moment, it was interpreted by her fans as such. Billie got a lot of backlash for this statement to the point where she addressed it on Instagram saying, "Okay, so it would be so awesome if people would stop putting words into my mouth and actually read what I said in that Billboard article. I wasn't singling anyone out, these are industry-wide systemic issues, and when it comes to variants, so many artists release them, including me, which I clearly state in the article. The climate crisis is now, and it's about all of us being part of the problem and trying to do better. Sheesh." Sheesh. Now, this is all happening in the build-up to Billie Eilish's third album, Hit Me Hard and Soft. Hit Me Hard and Soft is an album that I like very much. I think it is very good. And of course, the album has been highly anticipated considering that both of Billie Eilish's previous records have done very, very well. So, you know, coming off the heels of the Tortured Poets Department, a successful album, enjoyed by many people, not me, but many other people, wouldn't it be great if we pop music fans could go from celebrating the successes of a legacied female pop artist to celebrating the successes of another critically acclaimed female pop artist who's on her way to legacy? No, we actually have to watch these two artists' teams bait fans into engaging with anti-consumer practices previously mentioned in like the first 3 minutes of this video. But before we get there, I just wanted to thank the sponsor of today's episode, Manta Sleep. Listen, I love to sleep. Nobody loves to sleep more than me, but because I work full-time and I do this with the rest of my time, I don't often get the full 8 hours like I should, and sometimes I am so wired from all that I'm doing in the day that it takes me a long time to actually, get to the place where I can have a good night's sleep. But thankfully, Manta has come to my rescue, and I want to share this with you in case you have trouble getting a full night's sleep as well. This is called the Manta Sleep Mask Pro, billed as the most advanced sleep mask on the planet, so it's pretty official. You can see me putting it on here, and it has a lot of wonderful features. This thing is 100% black out. You cannot see anything. It'll black out all of the distractions in your room, outside, whatever, so that you can get a good night's sleep or even a nap throughout the day. If you're a side sleeper, the mask has C-shaped eye cups to make sure that position is still comfortable for you. And I know some people can be wary about masks because they can be uncomfortable sometimes, but this thing is super comfortable. You barely even feel it on you. There is zero pressure on your eyelids or eyelashes, and you don't get that claustrophobic feel. In addition to the Sleep Mask Pro, Manta has all kinds of masks for all kinds of sleepers. There's a Bluetooth mask, a pure silk mask, even masks that are weighted or have special cooling or heating features. To learn more about Manta Sleep, you can go to the link in my bio, and you can use my code KaylaSays at checkout for 10% off of your order. And thank you so much to our friends at Manta Sleep for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so Taylor's album, The Tortured Poets Department, came out in April and has been #1 on the Billboard charts for the last 4 weeks. Given that Billie Eilish's new album was so highly anticipated, it would make sense that in May, when Billie Eilish's album came out, she would be gunning for that top spot. Now here's where things get dicey. People are essentially accusing Taylor and/or her team of sabotaging Billie's #1 spot run by releasing more limited edition versions of the Tortured Poets Department. The idea there being that if there are more digital versions for Swifties to consume, that all factors into the #1 Billboard chart spot, and therefore Billie would sort of be iced out. Leading up to Billboard's tracking week, Taylor Swift and Billie Eilish basically went back and forth in the new digital edition game in order to try to get their sales up, with Billie releasing a new digital edition of Hit Me Hard and Soft, Taylor Swift releasing a new remix of Fortnite, and Billie once again following that up with another remix and an additional album expansion. Many people have called this strategy hypocritical on Billie Eilish's part, because it appears that she is currently playing the digital edition game in order to boost her sales and possibly get back in that #1 spot. Although some people argue that it's not equivalent because on the sustainability front, Billie is at the very least taking steps to once again engage in vinyl production that is done sustainably. It's also worth noting here that Taylor Swift's most recently released remix of Fortnite was done by a music producer named Blonde-ish, who is known for environmental activism, which could be nothing, or it has been interpreted by some as a diss at Billie Eilish, who accused her inadvertently of not being sustainable, or perhaps this was a move done to quell criticism about Taylor Swift's excessive private jet usage. Additionally, during this time, Billie Eilish sent a promo package to Kim Kardashian, who posted it on Instagram, and Kim and Taylor Swift notoriously have a long-standing beef with one another. Perhaps the most tangible evidence that this is at the very least affecting people in the Billie Eilish camp in some way were a series of tweets liked by Billie Eilish's manager. And apparently the evidence of him liking these tweets has since been scrubbed, presumably because people found out that that's what he was doing. So if you go to his Twitter, you likely won't see these there, but these are screenshots that have been circulating on Reddit and in some other places. Basically, he's co-signing the narrative that Taylor Swift and her team are very money hungry and they'll do anything to prevent other female artists from getting any kind of top spots or accolades. And the final piece of the puzzle here is that Billie Eilish was recently heard in a radio interview seemingly shading Taylor Swift once again, or not, depending on how far you want to read into it, but basically she was talking about how she couldn't have the capacity to do something like a 3-hour performance, which some have interpreted as being pointed toward a certain someone else who regularly does 3-hour performances.
I'm not doing a 3-hour show. That's literally psychotic. Nobody wants that. You guys don't want that. Don't want that. You know what I'm saying? I don't even want that as a fan. My favorite artist in the world. I'm not trying to hear them for 3 hours. You know what I mean? It's far too long. No, you don't want that. I promise to God. You don't.
And in this ongoing war of words, so to speak, Billie Eilish fans have pointed out that this remark may not in fact be as pointed as it seemingly comes off. Because in the past, Billie Eilish has gone on record saying that she admires Beyoncé and Taylor Swift, who can put on these really long, extravagant stadium shows. That quote specifically states, "I find it really hard to play stadiums. Beyoncé and Taylor are untouchable superstars. The fact that they can put on a show that long and it's filled with so many incredible moments is really amazing. I don't want anyone to think I'm ungrateful about playing stadiums, but when you go to one, there's nothing in you that thinks the artist knows you're there. I want the crowd to know that I'm seeing them with my own eyes." So that's where we are in the timeline of this alleged beef as of recording this video. And as you can tell, a lot of this isn't so much as what's been said, but more what's being unsaid and how the fandoms are kind of doing all the talking here. Because personally, I don't think Billie Eilish will ever address Taylor Swift directly. She gains nothing from that. I just think anytime she has spoken sort of off the cuff about her approach to music making and the music industry right now, She seems to just be expressing her disappointment with the current culture of excess, and there's no one who represents that culture more than Taylor Swift. And it's not lost on me that throughout this whole chart battle that Taylor won anyway, Billie did have to play a part in the digital release game that she had been criticizing up until this point, just because she worked very hard on this album. Obviously she wants that #1 spot, and so of course her team is going to engage in tactics that have worked similarly to everybody else. But of course she's going to get called a hypocrite in that situation because she has spoken out against this whole practice in some form. Although that gets a little complicated because she has specifically spoken out against the use of like album variants in terms of the use of vinyl material, not necessarily digital album variants. And also when she does release vinyl variants, she claims to do it in a more sustainable manner that uses recycled plastic and whatnot. Now as far as Taylor Swift's role in this, that's a little bit more complicated to me because I personally can't tell you how much she really cares at the end of the day about sabotaging Billie Eilish. The practical reason for that being that she is the most dominating female pop star, in the game right now. What reason does she have to sabotage someone with much less of a reach? But also, it's Taylor Swift, and given what I know about Taylor Swift, she does seem like she would do that because she's like obsessed with herself. But again, that's from the outside looking in. I can't prove that that's her actual mentality because she's never really spoken on it. I just feel like there's two schools of thought here. Either Taylor Swift doesn't actually care about any of this and it's her team being vindictive and strategic, and it's not because like Taylor's a nice person who wants everyone to succeed, it's literally just that she doesn't care. Or it is Taylor being personally vindictive because she purposefully wants to shut out any other competition from the game. I'm not sure which one of those narratives I believe, but what I can tell you is that all of this kinda just hurts the fan. I am a fan of both of these two artists. I have been for quite a while now. But I've never been part of like a die-hard fandom for a musician, and I feel like operating in that kind of community today is harder now than it ever has been. One, there's this sort of gatekeepy pressure to prove yourself as a die-hard fan by collecting all of these album variants and making sure you support the artist in any way that you possibly can if it means that they can break records or stay on the charts longer. That's a lot of pressure that can be put on these fan bases who oftentimes are made up of like younger kids who don't have a lot of money. But the way the music industry is currently set up enforces that kind of behavior. It's a really negative feedback loop that fandoms often get sucked into. I'm thinking back to that time a couple years ago where Justin Bieber's social media team tried to pressure his fans into helping get one of his songs to the top of the streaming charts, posting a guide that included instructions on how to like loop it on your playlists. Like the criteria for being a fan of an artist should just include like enjoying their music, not a complete instruction manual on how to make sure they're at the top of the charts. Because like if you don't support every single album variant that they put out or collect every single song like Pokemon, then are you really a fan? It's exhausting at best, and at worst, I feel like it's these big record labels just taking advantage of young kids who use fandom as a means of community building. Enjoying and sharing and discussing and streaming music should be fun for people. And I don't care if the business side of it is fun for Taylor Swift and Billie Eilish and their teams. I really don't. I care that above all else, music remains an accessible hobby for people. And between album variants and sky-high live music prices, it isn't. And like, you could argue that it's more complicated than that, and that Taylor Swift and Billie Eilish aren't necessarily at fault for the state of things right now, and that this is how they have to operate in order to stay competitive. And like, I get it. The poison drips through. These things are an industry-wide problem. I'm sure if I dig back enough in the history of the music industry, the reason why things are fucked right now is because of Ronald Reagan. That's normally how it goes. But like, who has more power and influence here? Billie Eilish and Taylor Swift, or Rebecca from Iowa who mods a group chat of 60 other Swifties, whose biggest responsibility in terms of day-to-day decision making is what color they want their braces to be that month? I'm disappointed and I expect better, but please tell me why I'm wrong and who we should actually be mad at in the comments down below. Thanks so much, you guys, and I'll see you next time.